Hey guys, tonight we're sneaking through the velvet curtains of history to peek at a world that was simultaneously sparkling, scandalous, and suspiciously sticky. The parties of the rich in the 1960s. Not the kind you see in movies, not the champagne and caviar Instagram version, but the real, lived-in, sometimes slightly horrifying kind, complete with questionable cocktails, dizzying dance floors, and more hairspray than you thought a human could survive. Before you sink into this historical velvet, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this, obviously. And leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and whether you're wearing slippers or socks right now. Somehow, somewhere, someone is always dancing barefoot. Now dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft, hypnotic white noise. Get cozy, and maybe grab a pillow to hug like it's your personal disco ball. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it was like to wake up in a mansion you didn't pay for? To sip a cocktail so sweet it could rot your teeth instantly? Did anyone ever wear pants that didn't squeak on the floor? Could you survive a night of live jazz, laughter, and gossip about people you'll never meet? Would you know which hors d'oeuvre to eat first, or accidentally eat the one with raw fish and regret it for 3 days? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1962. You're in a palatial house with a chandelier the size of a small planet, a record player spinning the latest jazz hit, and a butler giving you side-eye because you just tripped over a Persian rug. Welcome to the good life. Sort of. You open your eyes slowly, your senses immediately assaulted by luxury in the softest possible way. Sunlight pours through enormous floor-to-ceiling windows, bouncing off a crystal chandelier that looks like it could double as a small moon. The bed you're in is vast, like, if you fell asleep on one end, you could probably roll 3 times and still be in the same room. Vast. The sheets are crisp and impossibly white, with the faint scent of lavender and success. You stretch, which immediately results in knocking over a crystal vase perched perilously on the bedside table. It's okay. Someone will dust it off later, probably. But for now, you are acutely aware that you are awake in the kind of house that exists to make people feel simultaneously thrilled and mildly inadequate. The floor beneath your feet is polished to a reflection-worthy shine, and as you stand, your slippers squeak softly, a polite protest to your intrusion. You take a deep breath. The air smells faintly of lemon cleaner, old books, and the subtle undertone of someone's private cologne lingering from last night. It's a cocktail that says, "You belong here," mostly, and you nod, pretending to understand the underlying social contract. The walls are adorned with paintings that seem to watch you. Some depict landscapes that are undeniably real, and some are abstract swirls of colour that make you question if you're seeing modern art or just hallucinating from too much coffee yesterday. You sidestep a gilded armchair, and your fingers brush against the velvet, smooth enough to convince you that maybe this is how silk feels when it's polite. The bedroom has at least 3 doors. You pick one at random and find a walk-in closet that could easily be mistaken for a boutique. Shoes glimmer like tiny trophies, and there are enough dresses, suits, and scarves to clothe a small village. You take a deep breath, inhaling the faintly intoxicating smell of expensive leather and fabric softener, and immediately regret not having a stylist on call for life. You pad over to the bathroom, which is more like a spa wing with multiple sinks, a freestanding tub, and mirrors that reflect your uncertain expression from 6 different angles. You contemplate the absurdity of brushing your teeth in front of 3 enormous mirrors, while considering which one gives the best sophisticated, vaguely bored but approachable reflection. Hairbrush in hand, you realise your hair is going to be an adventure today. An adventure that might involve rollers, hairspray, and at least one accidental face slap from your own brush. You wander into the hallway, passing rooms with names on plaques like library, music room, and breakfast nook, but really breakfast hall. Somewhere above, soft strains of a piano filter down, as if the mansion itself is gently nudging you into elegance. You consider taking a nap right there in the hallway on the Persian rug that seems to hum under your weight. But you resist, reminding yourself that sleep in a luxurious mansion should be deliberate, not accidental. Stepping toward the window, you look outside at the meticulously trimmed gardens, fountains sparkling in the morning light, and a pool so blue it looks unreal. A butler appears, silent and impeccable, holding a tray with a single perfect cup of coffee, as if offering a lifeline to anyone awake enough to accept it. You take it, and immediately the warmth and caffeine feel like the hug you didn't know you needed, and the mansion seems slightly less intimidating. You take a moment to breathe in the calm absurdity of it all. Here you are, awake in a mansion, surrounded by perfection and minor hazards of luxury. You are both awed and slightly terrified by how much effort went into making this house exist without you tripping over anything, though realistically, you probably already have. You sip your coffee, glance at your reflection, and think, today you will navigate glamour, gossip, and slightly terrifying elegance. And somehow, maybe, you'll survive. You slide into the breakfast room, which is more like a hall designed to make people feel small in the most delightful way possible. The table stretches on for what seems like a mile, laden with silver platters, crystal bowls, and food so artfully arranged it almost feels alive. Croissants puff like golden clouds, fruits glisten as if photoshopped by some invisible pastry god, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifts through the air, strong enough to make you reconsider all life choices that led you to instant coffee yesterday. In one corner, a jazz trio plays so softly it feels less like music and more like a gentle vibration entering your bloodstream. The saxophone hums a warm hello, the piano tinkles politely, and the double bass provides a grounding thrum like a heartbeat for the room. The music wraps around you like a cashmere blanket, soothing yet somehow sophisticated enough that you feel guilty if you tap your foot too loudly. You sip your coffee and suddenly realize you're not just drinking caffeine, you're drinking an entire mood, elegantly foiled with sugar and cream. You reach for a croissant, flaking pastry dusting your fingers with an almost magical persistence. One bite, and your taste buds are assaulted with buttery bliss. You chew thoughtfully, because chewing is now a performance art in a room of subtle judgment. Around you, other guests nibble delicately, exchanging polite smiles and knowing glances, as if every bite carries a coded message. Yes, I am cultured. No, I do not like raisins in anything ever. A waiter glides past carrying a tray of poached eggs that shimmer with just enough yolk to make you question the sun itself. He tips an invisible hat, a silent acknowledgement that the world is both perfectly orchestrated and slightly absurd. You wonder how many eggs have been poached today and whether anyone has ever had an existential crisis caused by a perfectly cooked egg. For now, you decide to focus on the task at hand, eating before someone politely judges your table manners. The scent of fresh orange juice mingles with the perfume of the room, creating an intoxicating combination that makes you feel like you've stepped into a world where breakfast is a religion and you are a devoted disciple. You sip, savor, and try not to spill anything on the linen napkin, which feels like handling a delicate artifact from another century. Somehow, the napkin seems to judge your life choices in the gentlest way possible. Conversation floats in the air like dandelion seeds, catching your attention in fragments. A joke about a yacht, a remark about a recent art exhibit, a story about someone's cousin who may or may not have dated a famous musician. You nod at intervals that feel socially acceptable, laughing softly where appropriate, while secretly thinking about the leftover croissant tucked away in your palm for a later clandestine nibble. Outside the windows, the garden sparkles in the morning sun. Birds chirp politely, as if even nature is conspiring to make this breakfast perfect. A fountain burbles softly in the distance, adding a calming white noise to the scene. Everything is meticulously choreographed, and, yet somehow, it feels effortless. You take another sip of coffee, noticing the way the warmth spreads through your body, grounding you in the absurdity of elegance. You glance at the other guests and realize everyone is performing the same delicate dance of refinement. Small gestures, careful laughter, perfectly timed sips. Yet beneath the surface, there is a human desire for something simple. Comfort, a bite of buttery pastry, or maybe just a moment of unobserved clumsiness. You feel a tiny thrill knowing that even in this palace of sophistication, you are allowed small, secret rebellions, like reaching for an extra croissant or humming along slightly out of tune with the jazz trio. By the time you finish your coffee, you feel grounded, yet lightly exhilarated. The breakfast hall is alive, buzzing softly with elegance, conversation, and the faint scent of lemon zest. You stand, stretch, and prepare to move on to the next adventure of your day, already wondering what absurd delights await behind the next door. You make your way to the bathroom, which could easily be mistaken for a small spa resort or the setting for a very polite, slightly chaotic magic show. Mirrors line the walls in triplicate, reflecting you from angles that feel simultaneously flattering and mildly accusatory. Hairbrushes, combs, and what might be ancient curling irons lie scattered across marble counters, each whispering promises of glamour or threats of embarrassment. You pick one up, feeling the weight of responsibility and the faint static of human ambition. In the corner, hair rollers stand like little sentinels, each one suggesting a different type of sophistication. You try to roll your hair, but it tangles like a mischievous kitten with a vendetta. One strand escapes, looping around your finger, and you realize this is only the beginning of the day's hair-related adventures. A faint cloud of hairspray hovers like morning fog, scented with something floral, yet vaguely threatening to your sinuses. You inhale deeply, feeling both energized and slightly hypnotized. Makeup sits before you in organized chaos: powders, brushes, lipsticks, and a compact that seems to reflect not just your face, but also your insecurities. You pick up a brush, only to have it slip between your fingers like it's performing an escape act. You catch it mid-air, heart racing, and wonder whether the brush judges you for being clumsy or is silently cheering your resilience. Foundation is next, a delicate balance between coverage and I woke up looking effortlessly divine. You attempt to blend, and for a moment it looks like a work of art, before the mirror corrects you with the truth. Smudges. Everywhere. Somewhere nearby, a faint hum of classical music competes with the bubbling of hot water from the elaborate sink. You consider taking a quick bath, but then remember that your time is limited and elegance waits for no one. Instead, you splash your face with cold water, which feels simultaneously shocking and invigorating, like a wake-up call from a very stylish angel who also happens to be mildly terrifying. The mirror reflects multiple versions of you, one confident, one panicked, one vaguely confused about the purpose of eyeliner. You tilt your head, scrutinizing every angle, and wonder if the mirror is subtly mocking you or simply giving honest feedback. Lipstick follows, an exercise in precision that requires the coordination of a pianist and the patience of a saint. You apply it, smudge it slightly, then fix it again, because apparently perfection cannot be rushed, even at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday in the 1960s. Somewhere in the mansion, a butler silently opens a door, appearing briefly to deposit a towel or a tray of cosmetics with perfect timing. He does not speak, but the way he raises his eyebrow communicates volumes about your progress. You're doing fine, mostly. You nod, feeling both supported and slightly judged, and continue your battle with mascara, which seems to have its own willpower. Hair is finally pinned, makeup applied with strategic precision, and you step back to evaluate your reflection. For a brief moment you feel victorious, a human who has wrestled elegance into submission. And yet, the room hums with quiet reminders that the day is only beginning, that more glamour awaits, and that somewhere, someone else is also plotting a perfect eyeliner flick or teasing a curl to rebellion. Finally, you take a deep breath and marvel at the absurdity of it all. The hair, the makeup, the tiny wars fought in front of mirrors. They are both a ritual and a performance. You feel simultaneously tired, exhilarated, and ready to step out into the mansion like a slightly disoriented, fully styled apparition of 1960s sophistication. And for a moment, you imagine that maybe, just maybe, the hair and makeup have given you the secret power to face the day with elegance, or at least survive a conversation about avant-garde art without accidentally insulting someone's yacht. You barely have time to savour the victory of your perfectly coiffed hair when the butler appears, moving with the quiet precision of someone who has spent decades perfecting the art of silent judgment. He carries a silver tray with toast points arranged like tiny monuments to breakfast etiquette. The air shifts subtly, as if the walls themselves have noticed he's arrived and are holding their collective breath. He doesn't speak immediately. Instead, he surveys you with an expression that is simultaneously neutral, patient, and sharply accusatory. You feel the weight of his gaze on your every move, like a mild gravitational pull, reminding you that you are both guest and apprentice in the mansion of refinement. You sip your coffee nervously, hoping it is the correct temperature, strength, and style to pass unnoticed. It is. Barely. Then the lecture begins, softly at first, like a whisper, then more firmly, as if the mansion itself is speaking through him. One must always remember, he begins, tilting his head just slightly, that toast points must be buttered in the same direction as the grain of the bread. Otherwise, chaos will ensue. You nod solemnly, wondering if this is serious advice or an elaborate test of your patience. You have a sneaking suspicion it is both. He glides past, polishing an imaginary spot on a glass, and continues. Napkins are not merely cloth, they are extensions of one's character. Folding must be precise. Alignment is crucial. A slip may lead to irreparable social embarrassment. You glance down at your napkin, which is now trembling slightly in the breeze of his movement. You consider folding it in an experimental style, but wisely resist. As he speaks, he sprinkles his lecture with casual reminders about more obscure mansion rules. Never clink glasses too loudly, always use the salad fork before the dinner fork, and remember that compliments must be given sparingly, strategically, and with a hint of charm. You try to absorb it all while sipping your coffee, which now seems like a lifeline in the midst of an etiquette storm. At one point he pauses near a window and gestures subtly, as if indicating that the view of the gardens also serves as a lesson in perspective. One must always appreciate the symmetry, he says, and the asymmetry. Balance is key, yet unpredictability adds character. You nod again, feeling a strange combination of enlightenment and mild terror. The mansion is teaching you through him, and you are both the student and the bewildered participant in a grand social experiment. He moves toward the door, leaving a faint scent of sandalwood and authority in his wake. Remember, he adds casually, almost as an afterthought, even in small things there is great significance. Misplaced silverware can upset the cosmic order of dinner. And just like that he vanishes, leaving you blinking in the quiet aftermath of wisdom, caffeine, and lingering judgment. You take a moment to exhale and process the lecture. Your toast points are untouched, your napkin remains folded in a socially acceptable but safe manner, and your coffee feels like a shield against future infractions. Somehow, you have survived the morning seminar delivered entirely without anger or loudness, which makes it even more unnerving. Finally, you sit back and smile faintly, marveling at the absurdity of your existence. You are a human, newly emerged from the chaotic universe of hair, makeup, and breakfast precision, now armed with knowledge that may or may not prevent social catastrophe. And somewhere deep inside, you realize that surviving the butler's morning lecture is a rite of passage. It is a quiet triumph, a small victory in a mansion full of infinite expectations, and a reminder that elegance is both a weapon and a mystery. With that, you finish your toast, sip the last of your coffee, and prepare for the next absurdly refined adventure of the day, wondering what lessons in glamour, gossip, and social survival await just beyond the hallway. You step outside onto the marble terrace, where the morning sun glances off the surface of the pool so perfectly it seems almost unreal, like someone photoshopped reality in broad daylight. The water glimmers in tiny hypnotic ripples, each reflecting a fraction of the sky and making your reflection look both elegant and slightly bewildered. You dip a toe in, testing the temperature, and immediately regret that it's not warmer or cooler. Your brain can't quite decide what it wants from water that isn't simply water, but a symbol of leisure, luxury, and mild existential anxiety. As you settle into a chaise lounge, the gentle clink of glasses and faint hum of conversation drifts from the house. Somewhere, a saxophone hums its own meditative tune, blending with the soft rustle of leaves in the meticulously trimmed garden. The world feels suspended, like it has paused just long enough for you to consider life's truly pressing questions. Why does champagne taste better at 3 in the afternoon than any other time? Is it socially acceptable to nap with sunglasses on without appearing profoundly lazy? And why does everyone here insist on comparing everything to yachts, horses, or European estates that you can't afford, or even pronounce? You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sun warm your skin and the soft breeze kiss your cheeks. You hear the faint splashes of someone doing laps, the occasional laughter floating over from a balcony above, and the gentle hum of machinery keeping the fountains perfectly operational. It's an oddly philosophical orchestra: water, wind, distant gossip, and the quiet musings of a mind slowly unraveling in the brilliance of wealth. You notice a tray of snacks nearby, tiny, perfectly cut sandwiches that look more like modernist art than food. You reach for one, realizing that even indulgence in these delicacies requires precision. The crunch of crust against teeth seems amplified in this serene environment, each bite simultaneously satisfying and slightly absurd. You wonder if the first person to invent finger sandwiches ever considered the existential consequences of elegance. Somewhere across the pool, someone is practicing strokes with the precision of a human metronome, and you marvel at the combination of effortlessness and discipline. There is a peculiar symmetry to everything around you. The tiles, the trees, even the lounge chairs seem arranged according to some secret geometric philosophy that you aren't privy to. It occurs to you that perhaps the pool isn't just a pool, it's a floating meditation, a reflection not just of light, but of life itself. You sip your drink, a pink concoction that tastes vaguely like happiness, citrus, and sugar, and consider the universe. Why do people talk about success in vague terms like yachts and art collections? Why do the birds chirp in perfect synchrony with the soft jazz echoing from the mansion? And is it possible to philosophize properly while reclining in a sun-drenched chaise lounge surrounded by absolute comfort? Probably not, yet you do it anyway, because luxury encourages existential thought in the gentlest, most soothing way. Time seems to stretch and fold in on itself as you reflect on these small wonders. The sun continues its lazy arc across the sky, shadows shifting subtly across the water. You breathe in deeply, savouring the warmth, the smells, the gentle whispers of elegance. Life at the poolside in this mansion is absurd, calm and indulgent in equal measure, and for some reason that makes perfect sense. Eventually you rise, feeling both light and absurdly heavy at the same time. Your mind has wandered through philosophical musings, mild anxieties, and the occasional envy of a swan gliding across the pool. You are ready somehow to step back into the mansion, knowing that the day holds more absurd lessons in sophistication, chaos, and the gentle comedy of human ambition. You step out of the mansion into a waiting car, the sun catching the polished chrome in a way that almost makes the world feel like it's been filtered through rose-coloured lenses. The driver glances at you through the rear-view mirror, offering a polite nod that says, "You are about to enter a world of temptation and tiny, luxurious catastrophes. Good luck." You grip the edge of your seat, bracing yourself for what is politely known as a shopping trip. The boutique appears suddenly, like a jewel tucked into a street of perfectly ordinary buildings. Its windows shimmer with silk scarves, sequined gloves, and shoes that could double as miniature architectural marvels. You step inside and immediately feel the tug of gravity, only this time it isn't physical. It's the gravitational pull of desire, allure, and something vaguely scandalous. Every item seems to whisper your name, or at least your sense of style, in a soft, conspiratorial tone. A salesperson glides past, holding a tray of tiny macarons like edible treasures, their pastel colours somehow coordinating with the scarves on the racks. She smiles, and you are caught in a polite trance, considering chocolate, pistachio, and the possibility of purchasing a scarf that you will probably never wear. The rules of boutique etiquette are clear. You must appear intrigued, enthusiastic, and slightly overwhelmed, while secretly wondering how this world even functions on a mathematical level. You wander through racks of dresses, jackets, and suits, your fingers grazing silk, cashmere, and sequins that sparkle like liquid stars. Somewhere in your mind, a tiny voice whispers, "Do you need any of this?" And you laugh quietly at the absurdity of the question. Of course you don't need it. But luxury is about temptation, indulgence, and occasionally purchasing a leather glove for your cat, or maybe just for the sheer thrill of owning something unnecessarily extravagant. You try on a dress, which is so perfectly tailored, it feels like a second skin designed by angels with impeccable taste. You twirl in the mirror, the fabric catching the light in ways that feel vaguely magical. In the background, another customer admires a pair of shoes that defy the laws of both physics and comfort. You nod politely at her, knowing full well that no one here is truly buying practicality. They are purchasing style, status, and the exquisite thrill of imagining how the world will perceive them. Somewhere in the boutique, soft music hums, blending with the faint aroma of leather, perfume, and freshly baked macarons. You feel both dizzy and serene, as if the world has distilled elegance into a single room. A scarf beckons, a pair of gloves glint like treasure, and you realize that even a simple item carries the weight of 1,000 small, deliciously absurd choices. You finally select something, perhaps a necklace, perhaps a scarf, perhaps an object so trivial it is laughably unnecessary, and hand it to the salesperson with the air of someone making a monumental decision. The exchange is polite, swift, and somehow both anticlimactic and deeply satisfying. You walk out carrying your treasure like a tiny victory flag, feeling like a conqueror of frivolity, taste, and personal restraint. Back in the car, you glance at your purchase and smile. You may not have needed it, but the joy of choosing, holding, and briefly imagining its place in your life is enough. Luxury, you realize, is not about necessity. It's about indulgence, curiosity, and the gentle absurdity of wanting something simply because you can. You lean back in your seat, sipping the air of satisfaction, ready for the next indulgent adventure that awaits in this curious, extravagant day. You arrive at the dining room, which is less of a room and more of an architectural demonstration of excess and refinement. Chandeliers hang from the ceiling like constellations of crystal, catching the light and fracturing it into 1,000 tiny, judgmental reflections. The table stretches so far it feels like it has no end, each place setting meticulously arranged with enough silverware to imply that even minor mishaps are unforgivable. Guests are already gathered, their laughter and soft conversation creating a gentle hum that permeates the room. Everyone seems impossibly poised, sipping their water or cocktails with the kind of elegance you know is partially real and partially carefully practiced theatre. You nod politely at someone whose face seems vaguely familiar. You think she may have been on the cover of a magazine last month, or perhaps in a photograph from a party you weren't invited to. Either way, it doesn't matter. The nod is a gesture of social survival. The menu itself reads like poetry designed to confuse. Poached salmon with hints of citrus, salads arranged geometrically, and dishes that feature ingredients you've only seen in obscure culinary magazines. Each plate arrives on silver platters with a flourish, the servers moving in coordinated silence, leaving behind a subtle aroma of butter, herbs, and minor intimidation. You take a small bite of something perfectly balanced and immediately feel both satisfied and anxious that someone else's portion looks more artistically arranged. Conversation flows in gentle eddies and currents, touching on stocks, avant-garde art, and someone's recent trip to Europe. You try to follow along, nodding at the right intervals and offering the occasional fascinating or absolutely where appropriate. Somewhere, someone mentions a yacht and another mentions a sculpture. You wonder if it is socially acceptable to admit that you have no idea what a sculpture should do beyond look like art. You decide to smile enigmatically instead, which seems to work. The room smells faintly of perfume, fresh linens, and something intangible, perhaps ambition. Your senses are simultaneously relaxed and heightened. Every sip of water, every morsel of food feels like part of a carefully choreographed ritual. You glance at a nearby guest whose laughter seems perfectly timed, and you feel a fleeting pang of inadequacy mixed with admiration. These people are dazzling, and you are learning. Servers glide past with trays of delicate pastries, tiny sandwiches, and something resembling a miniature garden on a plate. You take one, feeling the soft crunch of perfection and the strange thrill of indulgence without guilt. For a moment, you imagine that this luncheon is not just about sustenance, but about experiencing refinement as a sensory sport. Tasting, observing, listening, and occasionally surviving the silent scrutiny of the elegantly trained eye. Somewhere, a waiter whispers something to a guest, and you can't help but imagine it's a secret code about the relative value of desserts, or the appropriate response to someone commenting on your choice of wine. You nod to yourself, making a mental note that luxury often comes with unspoken rules, and that surviving this lunch requires diplomacy, awareness, and a touch of detachment. By the time dessert arrives, a collection of delicate pastries with hints of fruit chocolate and edible flowers, you feel strangely triumphant. You have navigated conversation, maintained proper posture, and eaten without catastrophic spills. You savour the sweet buttery treat, realising that this is what the 1960s elite do. They exist in a bubble of beauty, absurdity, and tiny competitions, all under the guise of casual conversation. Finally, As coffee is served and the soft jazz from the corner of the room hums through your consciousness, you recline slightly, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. You've survived the luncheon, absorbed a small degree of sophistication, and tasted enough caviar-adjacent experiences to feel faintly immortal. And somewhere, in the gentle chaos of opulence, you realize that you are exactly where you need to be, navigating elegance, absurdity, and the quiet thrill of belonging, even temporarily, to a world that exists somewhere between fantasy and mild panic. After the whirlwind of luncheon, conversation, and subtle social navigation, you find yourself wandering down a long, sunlit corridor. Light filters through tall windows, dust motes floating lazily like tiny golden dancers. Somewhere, the faint strains of a piano hum through the walls, soft and inviting, and you realize that the mansion itself is nudging you toward one inevitable truth. It is nap time. Your eyes settle on a velvet armchair tucked in a quiet alcove, a throne of comfort calling your name with the gentle insistence of someone who knows your life has been exhausting. The armchair is enormous, soft, and reassuringly saggy in all the right places, as if it has been waiting for you specifically. You approach it cautiously, aware that one false step might send you sliding off into a nearby Persian rug and sink into the embrace of the cushions. Immediately, the world feels slower. The air smells faintly of lavender, polished wood, and just a hint of last night's perfume, lingering like a ghost of glamour past. You close your eyes and let your head rest against the chair, feeling the subtle support of velvet and spring beneath you. Somewhere nearby, a gentle fan hums, blending with the soft murmur of conversations from distant rooms. It's an oddly perfect lullaby, composed entirely of elegance and minor absurdity. As you drift, your thoughts wander. You imagine the garden outside, with fountains glittering in sunlight, birds flitting between manicured shrubs, and statues that gaze at you as if silently judging your every movement. You think about the people you've met today, their laughter, the subtle battles of posture, and the quiet competitions of refinement. And yet, in the sanctuary of the armchair, none of it matters. Here, for a moment, you are free. Somewhere in the room, a faint shuffle of footsteps signals that a maid or butler is nearby, adjusting a pillow or folding a blanket with silent precision. You hear the soft clink of a teacup or the distant tap of a shoe, but it only adds to the rhythm of the nap, a kind of genteel white noise that carries you further into relaxation. Every muscle in your body begins to release tension, your shoulders dropping, your jaw unclenching, your mind slowing from the dizzying pace of opulence outside this quiet corner. You drift between consciousness and dream, imagining extravagant parties, shimmering gowns, and absurdly delicate hors d'oeuvres floating on silver trays. You picture chandeliers refracting light like tiny galaxies above dancing feet, guests exchanging whispers that feel like ancient spells of etiquette. Even in your half-awake state, the absurdity of wealth and elegance mixes with a comforting sense of timelessness. A soft breeze drifts in through an open window, carrying the scent of flowers, freshly cut grass, and faintly of champagne. You inhale deeply and feel yourself sinking further into the velvet cocoon. Every sound, smell, and touch blends into a gentle, lulling symphony designed to make your body relax and your mind wander gently across the mansion. You imagine the afternoon stretching endlessly, a slow river of warm light and quiet indulgence, with you as the sole fortunate observer. Somewhere between dreaming and waking, you realize that these naps are not mere rest. They are a rehearsal for life in the mansion. They teach patience, subtlety, and the skill of being simultaneously alert and profoundly relaxed. You may drift through half-formed thoughts of gossip, elegance, and existential curiosity, but the armchair holds you in perfect equilibrium, reminding you that sometimes the finest experiences of the 1960s, elite were the quiet ones, away from the clinking glasses and sparkling eyes. When you finally stir, it is reluctantly, aware that more adventures, cocktails, fashion, gossip, await you. You stretch languidly, feeling the lingering comfort of the velvet against your skin, and rise slowly, savouring the final moments of this peaceful, absurd, and deeply indulgent interlude. Your body is relaxed, your mind calm, and your soul, for a fleeting afternoon, utterly pampered. You step out of the mansion and into the sun-drenched expanse of the golf course, where the grass is so perfectly manicured it practically glows under the morning sun. Each blade seems to stand at attention, as if aware that wealth, etiquette, and subtle social manoeuvring are about to traverse its verdant plains. Somewhere in the distance, a fountain sprays lazily, punctuating the scene with the gentle hum of sophistication. You grip your golf club, feeling both empowered and slightly ridiculous. The leather of the glove fits snugly, as if reminding you that you are both participant and spectator in this delicate dance of leisure. You take a swing, and though the ball barely manages a polite hop, you are applauded internally for effort. Out here, appearances matter more than results. Precision of social navigation far outweighs precision in sport. As you wander down the fairway, conversation drifts from group to group. People speak in hushed tones that carry just enough intrigue to make every word feel like a secret. Who bought what yacht? Which heiress is rumoured to be leaving the country? Who snubbed whom at last night's gala? You nod politely, trying to memorise names and alliances, all while adjusting your stance to avoid accidentally trampling a perfectly placed divot. Golf etiquette is subtle. Social etiquette here is lethal. You notice a small gathering near a sand trap where the laughter is light but sharp, and the glances exchanged are sharper still. You overhear snippets. A joke about someone's investment portfolio, a comment about a new gallery opening, and a whispered opinion about last month's dinner disaster. You sip your sparkling water, realizing that gossip here functions as both entertainment and currency. To hear it, to repeat it correctly, is to gain leverage. To misstep is to risk silent ostracism. The green stretches endlessly before you, the horizon dotted with distant figures in pastel polos and wide-brimmed hats. Each swing, each step, seems choreographed to maintain equilibrium between effortlessness and observation. You take another swing, this one slightly better, and feel the faint thrill of accomplishment, though it is quickly overshadowed by the quiet judgment of someone adjusting a visor nearby. Even nature seems aware that hierarchy matters, as if the trees themselves bow to the whims of social order. You wander toward a small gazebo, where a pair of guests discuss the merits of European wines versus local vintages. Their conversation dances elegantly between knowledge, subtle one-upmanship, and barely concealed amusement. You nod politely, wondering if it is safe to comment on champagne, or if that would betray your amateur status. Here, knowing the right facts at the wrong time can be catastrophic. The stakes, it seems, are as delicate as the freshly mown grass beneath your feet. A caddie appears, silent, observing you with an expression that conveys both patience and slight disappointment. He offers advice in whispers. The wind might favour your swing, but only if your focus does not wander to gossip or gossip-adjacent thoughts. You nod, taking in the wisdom, though distracted by the realization that even caddies participate in the subtle hierarchy, silently cataloguing social success, failure, and potential faux pas. By mid-afternoon, the sun has shifted, shadows stretching lazily across the fairway. You pause for a moment, sipping sparkling water, watching as guests continue their elegant game of golf and conversation. You realize that the sport is secondary here. The real activity is observation, the careful navigation of alliances, and the performance of casual sophistication. You are learning slowly that the rules of the fairway are both literal and social, and that mastering either requires patience, grace, and a touch of cunning. Finally, as you sink into a lounge chair by the edge of the green, watching a distant golfer narrowly avoid a sand trap, you feel a sense of serene accomplishment. You have participated in the dance of hierarchy, absorbed a small amount of gossip, and survived the subtle pressure of wealth and observation. The day stretches before you, endless, absurd and indulgent, promising more adventures of elegance, absurdity, and soft human drama as the mansion continues to unfold its quiet, hypnotic universe. You make your way back to the mansion, where the faint clink of glasses and the soft hum of conversation guides you like a siren song. In the lounge, the air smells of polished wood, citrus zest, and just a hint of something floral, perhaps a subtle nod to last night's party. You settle into a low armchair, feeling the plush cushions mould around you, as if welcoming a weary traveller into the cushioned folds of indulgence. A waiter appears, carrying a silver tray with a decanter of gin and a crystal glass half filled with tonic. He tilts his head politely, as if acknowledging your arrival into a world where beverages are both refreshment and ritual. You accept the glass, letting the tiny clink of ice echo softly, and take a cautious sip. It is bitter, sharp, and utterly sophisticated, a liquid reminder that elegance sometimes tastes a little like reflection and a little like mild panic. As the tonic bubbles softly, you begin to feel the weight of the day pressing against the edges of your consciousness. The mansion is quiet now, in a contemplative way, the kind of quiet that encourages small existential musings about wealth, leisure, and why anyone ever decided cocktails needed to be both ceremonial and complicated. You stir the drink gently, watching the ice spin lazily, and wonder if, somewhere, a philosopher once concluded that gin and tonic is the drink of enlightened thought. Around you, guests sip their drinks, exchanging murmurs about art exhibitions, sailing trips, and minor scandals that are significant only in the context of an opulent social bubble. You nod politely at fragments of conversation, pretending to grasp the importance of some subtle intrigue, while actually contemplating whether life outside this mansion involves a simpler relationship with ice cubes. Here, sophistication carries a weight both literal and metaphorical. One misstep, even a poorly poured drink, can signal social catastrophe. You notice the sunlight streaming through the tall windows, glinting off the polished surfaces and the rims of glasses. Shadows shift slowly, tracing patterns across Persian rugs, velvet chairs, and the glimmering trays of refreshments. You feel a peculiar mix of relaxation and tension, the kind of calm that exists only when indulgence meets observation, and your mind begins to wander toward existential territory. Thoughts drift in lazy circles. Who really benefits from social rituals? Is elegance merely a performance, a delicate dance of perception? And most pressing, how many people have sat exactly here before you, swirling gin, imagining the universe and quietly judging themselves for not swirling it correctly? You take another sip, letting the bitter liquid anchor you just enough to enjoy your own absurd musings. Somewhere in the background, the faint strains of a jazz piano hum, mingling with distant laughter and the gentle clatter of glassware. The combination is hypnotic, a soft symphony of leisure, absurdity, and subtle tension that seems to wrap around your mind like a cashmere blanket infused with caffeine and mild panic. You recline, swirling the gin and tonic, imagining that even the bubbles rise in careful choreography, avoiding collision with one another as if respecting the delicate hierarchy of the mansion. You sip slowly, letting the flavours linger, your thoughts drifting between introspection and quiet amusement at the absurdity of it all. Life here seems a continuous study in ritual, elegance, and gentle human comedy. The gin sharpens your awareness while the tonic softens it, creating a balance that mirrors the mansion itself, indulgent, precise, and faintly ridiculous. Eventually, you set the glass aside, feeling the combination of alcohol, contemplation, and serene absurdity washing over you. The world softens at the edges, shadows stretch, and the mansion seems to exhale with you. In this suspended moment, the day's events, lunch, naps, golf, shopping, meld into a gentle rhythm of elegance and absurdity. You breathe deeply, knowing the afternoon will continue to unfold in a series of small delights, minor crises, and quiet, soothing hilarity. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long golden shadows across the mansion. You retreat to your room, a quiet haven of silk, polished wood, and soft lighting that whispers, "Tonight we ascend into spectacle." The evening party is imminent, and you feel the peculiar combination of excitement, mild dread, and a subtle panic that only a fully orchestrated social gathering can induce. Your wardrobe choices lie before you, like a carefully curated gallery of possibility. Dresses hang in orderly rows, shoes are arrayed like precious artifacts, and accessories glint with the promise of attention. You ponder each piece, weighing its merits in both elegance and impact. Should tonight be bold, sophisticated, mysterious, or a carefully engineered combination of all three? You settle on a dress that feels simultaneously effortless and devastatingly chic, because in the 1960s, even choosing attire is a strategic act of theatre. Hair and makeup once again demand attention, this time with the added pressure of evening glamour. Your reflection multiplies in the mirrors, offering countless angles from which to critique, adjust, and perfect. Curlers, hairspray, and brushes converge in an intricate ballet, each strand of hair a participant in an elaborate drama. Makeup becomes a study in subtlety, enough to highlight features, but not so much that it appears overtly rehearsed. You apply each brushstroke with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a saint, aware that tonight, even a single smudge could become legend. Somewhere outside your door, footsteps echo, servants making final preparations, arranging trays, adjusting candles, and ensuring every corner of the mansion aligns with the invisible standards of perfection. You take a deep breath, inhaling the mingling scents of perfume, polished wood, and something faintly citrusy from last night's untouched decorations. The mansion itself seems to pulse with anticipation, as if it knows the evening will be both absurdly elegant and mildly catastrophic in the most charming way possible. Accessories are selected with care, a bracelet that sparkles under light, earrings that hint at sophistication without shouting, and a clutch that feels like it could contain secrets or champagne, whichever is necessary. You practice the delicate art of holding a drink, a conversation, and your posture simultaneously, a trifecta of skill only honed through years of observation or imagination. You step back, glance at your reflection, and realize that the costume of elegance is now complete. Dinnerware, floral arrangements, and the faint hum of jazz remind you that this is not just a gathering, it is a performance. You consider the guest list, a constellation of notable names, socialites, and a few mysterious figures whose reputations precede them. The mansion, your wardrobe, and your carefully perfected poise will all be part of tonight's delicate equation, a silent choreography of status, observation, and amusement. As the first guests arrive, the mansion breathes life, the soft clatter of heels echoing across polished floors. Music drifts from the piano, conversations swirl like gentle eddies, and the room shimmers with light, colour, and quiet expectation. You step into the hallway, feeling the subtle thrill of anticipation, aware that tonight, Every gesture, every smile, every sip of champagne is part of a narrative both absurd and deeply satisfying. Finally, you exhale, feeling the paradoxical mix of excitement and serenity that comes from preparation completed and the evening yet to unfold. The mansion's energy wraps around you, and for a fleeting moment, you feel both exhilarated and grounded, ready to navigate the intricate dance of elegance, absurdity, and humour that is about to begin. Tonight the world will shimmer, gossip will swirl, and you will be part of it all, gracefully or at least memorably. You hear them before you see them. The soft crunch of tyres on gravel, the low murmur of voices drifting in from the driveway, and the unmistakable rhythm of heels clicking against stone like polite warning bells. The evening has officially begun. The mansion straightens its posture. The lights glow just a touch warmer. Even the air seems to inhale in preparation. You position yourself somewhere strategic but casual, near a doorway, not blocking traffic, holding a drink that looks expensive without being aggressive about it. Outside, car doors open with theatrical timing. Guests emerge one by one, wrapped in tailored suits, shimmering dresses, and confidence that has been carefully cultivated over decades. Each arrival is its own small performance, complete with laughter, cheek kisses, and the subtle scan of the room that asks, who's here, who's late, and who matters tonight? The front doors open again and again, ushering in waves of perfume, cologne, and anticipation. Names are announced softly, sometimes inaccurately, but no one corrects them. That would be rude. You watch as guests glide inside, their expressions effortlessly delighted, as if they haven't spent the entire day worrying about exactly this moment. Coats are removed by silent professionals, handed off and disappeared forever, like problems that simply don't exist in this world. Conversations begin immediately, overlapping and weaving together like a well-rehearsed symphony. Someone laughs a little too loudly at a joke that wasn't that funny. Someone else pretends not to notice. Champagne appears in your hand before you remember wanting it, bubbles rising optimistically as if unaware of the social complexity surrounding them. You take a sip and feel instantly more capable of existing in this environment. Near the entrance, a cluster forms around a particularly important arrival. You don't know exactly why they're important, only that everyone else seems to know. Heads tilt, smiles sharpen. Compliments are exchanged like ceremonial offerings. You observe quietly, learning the unspoken rules. Linger, but not too long. Smile, but don't stare. Appear delighted, but never impressed. The mansion fills steadily, the volume of conversation rising to a soft, controlled hum. Music floats through the rooms, jazz notes slipping between sentences and settling into corners like they belong there. Glasses clink gently. Laughter pulses and fades. You move through the space slowly, greeting people you've met once and people you've never met but are expected to know. You nod, smile, say just enough, and retreat gracefully before anyone can ask you a question that requires specifics. As the last few guests arrive, fashion reaches its peak. Sequins catch the light. Jewellery flashes like coded messages. Suits are crisp, dresses fluid, and everyone looks like the best possible version of themselves. Slightly unreal, slightly untouchable. You become acutely aware that this party is not about fun in the modern sense. It's about being seen having fun. There's a difference and you feel it settle gently into your bones. You pause near a window, watching reflections move across the glass, the inside and outside worlds blending together. The mansion is alive now, buzzing with energy, gossip, ambition, and carefully curated delight. And you're part of it, standing there with your drink, your practiced smile, and the comforting realization that you don't have to do anything extraordinary. You just have to exist convincingly. The night stretches ahead of you, full of conversation, laughter, and moments that will be remembered vaguely and discussed inaccurately later. For now, you breathe, sip your champagne, and let the arrival fade into motion. The party has begun, and somehow you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You find yourself drifting into a conversational cluster that seems important, mostly because everyone is holding their drinks very carefully and nodding at precise intervals. The room is warm now, softly glowing with lamplight and ambition. The music hums low enough to feel private, but loud enough to excuse any awkward pauses. You take a sip of your cocktail and prepare to say absolutely nothing of substance for a very long time. Someone begins speaking about an art exhibition, not the art itself exactly, more the idea of having been there. You listen as phrases float past you like balloons with no strings. Bold use of negative space, quite daring, very European. You nod thoughtfully, as if these words have weight and direction. Another guest agrees enthusiastically, though you suspect neither of them could explain what the art actually looked like if pressed. Fortunately, no one presses. The conversation gently shifts to travel. Someone mentions the Riviera, another counters with Capri, and a third casually drops in that they were just in Paris for a long weekend, as if that's a thing normal humans do. You smile politely and sip your drink, wondering if anyone here has ever taken a vacation that involved sweatpants or a slightly disappointing hotel breakfast. You suspect not. You contribute a small, safe comment, something vague about how lovely it must have been this time of year. This is received warmly, like you've just offered a perfect puzzle piece. No follow-up questions, no details required. You feel an immediate sense of accomplishment. You are doing this correctly. The group laughs at something mildly amusing, though it's unclear what triggered it. Laughter here functions as punctuation rather than response. Drinks are refilled silently. Ice clinks. Someone gestures with their glass a little too broadly and apologizes 3 times, though nothing has been spilled. Crisis averted. A new topic emerges: investments. This is your cue to listen very carefully and say nothing at all. Numbers float by, abstract and impressive, completely detached from reality. You nod, again, slowly, as if absorbing wisdom. Inside, your mind drifts to simpler things: comfortable chairs, quiet rooms, the soft certainty of not having to pretend to understand markets. The conversation circles back on itself, repeating points with slightly different wording, like a record skipping politely. You realize that none of this is meant to conclude. These conversations are designed to exist, not to resolve. Their purpose is rhythm, not meaning. They fill the space, smooth the silence, and reassure everyone involved that they belong. You glance around the room. Similar conversations are happening everywhere. Small islands of nodding, smiling people suspended in gentle verbal loops. The party hums along, powered by cocktails, careful listening, and the shared understanding that nothing important needs to be said. Eventually, the group dissolves naturally. No goodbye required. Someone drifts toward the bar. Someone else spots a more advantageous conversation across the room. You remain where you are for a moment, sipping the last of your drink, feeling oddly relaxed. There's comfort in this kind of social static. Sound without pressure, connection without demand. You exhale slowly, letting the noise wash over you. The party continues, smooth and endless, and you realize that these conversations aren't failures. They're features, soft, circular, and gently meaningless. Perfect, really, for easing into the night. Eventually, as if by some unspoken agreement written into the walls decades ago, the music changes. The tempo lifts just enough to signal that standing perfectly still with a drink is no longer sufficient. The dance floor awakens, not suddenly, but politely. Chairs shift, shoes adjust. People glance at one another to see who will move first, because no one ever wants to be first. Then it happens. One brave soul steps onto the floor, not confidently, just decisively enough to break the spell. And that's all it takes. Others follow in small, cautious waves, drifting into position like chess pieces pretending not to notice the board. You find yourself carried along, guided by momentum, expectation, and the mild fear of standing out by not participating. The music hums through the room, warm and rhythmic. Jazz blends into something more danceable, still tasteful, still restrained. Movements here are not wild. They are curated. Shoulders sway. Hands lift just slightly. Feet slide rather than stomp. Everyone dances as if they're being observed by history itself, which in a way they are. You begin with small movements, enough to qualify as dancing, not enough to draw attention. This is a delicate balance. Too much enthusiasm suggests recklessness. Too little suggests judgment. You find the middle ground, swaying gently, nodding to the rhythm, letting your body do just enough to appear relaxed but never spontaneous. Nearby, a couple argues quietly while dancing, smiling through clenched teeth, their steps perfectly synchronized despite the tension. Across the floor, someone laughs too loudly and spins a little too fast, instantly becoming a cautionary tale. You make a mental note: joy is acceptable, but only in moderation. The lighting softens further, shadows stretching across the floor, blurring edges and expectations. Jewelry flashes briefly, then disappears again. The room feels slower now, dreamier. The music wraps around you, steady and hypnotic, smoothing over any lingering social anxiety. For a moment, you forget to think. You just move. Time stretches. Songs blend together. The drama becomes quieter, less about missteps and more about proximity. Who dances with whom? Who doesn't? Who lingers just a little too close? It's all noted, all filed away somewhere invisible, but none of it urgent. Not tonight. You feel the gentle warmth of the room, the shared rhythm, the strange comfort of moving among people without needing to speak. Dancing here isn't about expression, it's about participation, about being part of the scene, the moment, the memory that will later be described vaguely and fondly. As the music slows again, people begin to drift away from the floor, satisfied, slightly flushed, quietly relieved. You follow, heart steady, body relaxed, mind pleasantly blank. The dance floor fades back into background, the drama dissolving into soft laughter and clinking glasses. You realise with a small sense of peace that you survived it. You danced just enough. You didn't fall, spin wildly, or accidentally reinvent yourself. And that, in this world, counts as success. Just when you begin to wonder if cocktails are the entire meal, a subtle shift ripples through the room. Conversations slow, people glance toward doorways, someone checks a watch they don't actually need. Dinner is approaching, not urgently, not efficiently, but deliberately late, because hunger is temporary and anticipation is fashionable. A quiet announcement floats through the space, not spoken so much as implied. Guests begin migrating toward the dining room in a slow, graceful current. You follow, guided by instinct and the faint hope that something solid is finally involved. The dining room reveals itself like a stage set. Long table, crisp linens, candlelight reflecting off polished silverware that looks far too serious for food. You take your seat, careful to do so smoothly, as if you've practiced this your entire life. Chairs slide in unison. Napkins are unfolded with ceremonial precision and placed gently on laps. The table hums with low conversation. the kind that suggests importance without revealing content. You glance at the place setting and quietly count the utensils, realizing this is not a meal, it's a test. The first course arrives eventually, delivered by professionals who move like ghosts. The dish is small, very small. It is arranged beautifully, like food that has dreams of being photographed. You examine it, unsure where to begin, then follow the lead of those around you. Tiny bites, slow chewing, thoughtful pauses. No one eats like they're hungry. That would be unseemly. Wine is poured with care, glasses refilled before they're empty, because emptiness here is unacceptable. The conversation shifts again, softer now, cushioned by fabric and candlelight. Someone compliments the food. Someone else agrees enthusiastically. You do too, though you're not entirely sure what you're agreeing about. The flavours are subtle, possibly symbolic. Course follows course, each arriving with a gentle flourish and disappearing just as quickly. You realise the true purpose of dinner isn't nourishment, it's duration. It stretches the evening, anchors the party, gives everyone something to do with their hands while they continue not saying anything meaningful. Between bites, you listen to forks clink softly against plates, a soothing rhythmic sound. Candles flicker. The room feels slower, heavier, like it's settling into itself. You feel pleasantly full, or at least convincingly so. By the time dessert arrives, elegant, restrained, just sweet enough, you've forgotten what time it is. That's intentional. Time here is flexible, optional. You take a final sip of wine, lean back slightly, and exhale. Dinner is complete. You've passed another test, and the night somehow still isn't over. After dinner, the room exhales. Chairs scrape softly as people stand, stretch, and reposition themselves into looser configurations. Almost immediately, cigarettes appear, as if summoned by the absence of forks. Cases open with quiet clicks. Lighters flick. A constellation of tiny flames briefly illuminates faces before vanishing again. You find yourself enveloped in smoke, thin at first, then gradually thickening into a shared atmosphere. It curls lazily toward the ceiling, settling into curtains, hair, and the very idea of the evening. No one comments on it. This is simply how air works now. Breathing becomes optional. People smoke with style here. Cigarettes are held delicately, exhaled thoughtfully. Every drag is taken as if it might be observed, evaluated, remembered. Ashes are tapped precisely, never rushed. Somewhere nearby, someone explains that they only smoke socially, which here means constantly. The smell is unmistakable, sharp, dry, faintly sweet, layered over perfume and cologne, until everything blends into one warm, hazy note. You inhale accidentally and immediately feel older, wiser, and slightly more dramatic. Your eyes sting just enough to give you a permanent look of emotional depth. Conversations resume at a slower pace, softened by the smoke. Words drift and linger, just like everything else. Laughter is quieter now, more confidential. The room feels smaller, closer, wrapped in a shared fog that makes everything feel dreamlike and distant. You notice how the smoke blurs edges, faces, furniture, even time itself. It's harder to tell how long you've been standing, listening, nodding. Minutes stretch, thoughts slow. The evening becomes less about events and more about atmosphere. Ashtrays fill silently, emptied without fuss, replaced before they're needed. Someone offers you a cigarette. You accept or decline, it hardly matters. Even if you don't smoke, the smoke finds you. It settles into your clothes, your hair, your memory. There's a strange comfort in it, despite everything. The haze creates privacy in plain sight, a shared invisibility. You feel tucked away inside the moment, suspended between dinner and whatever comes next. Eventually, someone opens a window just a crack. Cool air slips in, mixing with the smoke, creating a slow, swirling dance. The cloud thins but never disappears. It simply becomes part of the night's texture. You breathe, carefully, blinking slowly, feeling heavy and calm. The party continues, wrapped in smoke and silence, and the unspoken agreement that this is all perfectly normal. The cigarette cloud drifts on, carrying the evening gently forward. As the smoke settles and the energy softens, people begin migrating again, drawn toward the living room like it's offering something warmer than conversation. The lighting is lower here, lamps casting soft pools of amber across velvet sofas and low tables. You take a seat that feels intentional but accidental, sinking slightly into cushions designed for lingering. This room changes people. Voices drop, movements slow, drinks are held closer, sipped instead of drained. Someone sighs deeply, as if the night itself has grown heavy enough to justify it. You sense it immediately. This is where the confessions happen, not dramatic ones, not life-altering ones, just small truths, shared quietly and then left to rest. Someone beside you admits they never liked living in the city, even though they've been insisting otherwise for years. Another guest confesses they're exhausted by pretending to enjoy parties exactly like this one. Laughter follows, soft and relieved, because everyone understands. You nod, offering your presence rather than advice. That seems to be the currency here. The piano plays faintly from another room, notes drifting in like memories that don't belong to anyone specific. The cigarette smoke thins further, replaced by the comforting smell of old books, upholstery, and something faintly alcoholic. Time stretches again, generous and unstructured. You find yourself sharing something small, a harmless truth, carefully chosen. Maybe you mention how quiet mornings feel better than late nights. Maybe you admit you don't remember half the conversations you've had tonight. This is received kindly, like a secret placed gently on the table and admired, not examined. Eyes grow heavier, postures soften. Someone leans back and closes their eyes for just a moment, trusting the room to hold them. There's no urgency here, no need to perform, just quiet acknowledgement that beneath the glamour and conversation, everyone is tired in roughly the same way. The living room hums with a low, steady calm. You listen more than you speak now, letting voices wash over you, blending together into something soothing and indistinct. The party feels far away, like it's happening in another house, another life. You sink deeper into the couch, feeling the night press gently against you. These confessions don't change anything. They aren't meant to. They simply exist, shared and then released. And somehow, that's enough. At some point, no one is quite sure when, someone suggests a game. Not enthusiastically, more as a gentle experiment, like asking if anyone wants tea. The idea floats in the air, meets no resistance, and suddenly a small table is being cleared. Cards appear. Dice materialize. A board game emerges that looks expensive, complicated, and entirely unexplained. You gather closer, drawn by the promise of something to do with your hands that isn't holding a drink. The rules are mentioned briefly, vaguely, and then immediately forgotten. Everyone nods anyway. This is not about winning, it's about participating convincingly. The game begins in a slow, meandering way. Someone rolls dice with great seriousness. Someone else moves a piece without fully understanding why. You follow along, trusting that if you act calmly enough, no one will question your choices. Every so often, someone pauses and asks, "Is that allowed?" The group considers this carefully, then agrees that it probably is. Laughter drifts in and out, gentle and unforced. The stakes are non-existent. The only prize seems to be time passing pleasantly. A glass tips slightly, caught just in time. Apologies are made, waved away, forgotten. You notice how relaxed everyone looks now. Jackets are off. Shoes have loosened their grip. Hair has softened, no longer perfectly arranged. The game provides structure without pressure, something to orbit around while conversation drifts freely. At some point, the game quietly dissolves. Pieces remain scattered. No one declares an end. Someone starts telling a story that may or may not relate to anything happening on the table. You lean back, listening, eyes half closed. The room feels warm and safe, wrapped in lamplight and familiarity. The night has slowed to a gentle crawl. You're no longer aware of time passing, only of comfort settling in. You realize, with a small sense of relief, that no one will remember how this game was played, who won, or why it started, and that's exactly why it worked. Without announcement or plan, the party thins, not ends, just redistributes. You find yourself drifting toward the kitchen, guided by instinct, fatigue, and the universal truth that kitchens are where things get real. The lighting here is brighter, more honest. No mood lamps, no performance, just countertops, appliances, and the comforting hum of refrigeration. A small group has already gathered. Shoes are kicked off. Jackets are draped over chairs with no concern for wrinkles. Someone opens the fridge and stares into it thoughtfully, as if expecting answers. The contents are impressive but strangely unappealing. Leftovers arranged perfectly, untouched, waiting for a moment like this. You lean against the counter, feeling the cool surface through your clothes. The room smells faintly of coffee, citrus, and something baked earlier, but never eaten. Someone pours a glass of water and drinks it like it's the most important thing they've done all night. You understand completely. Conversation here is different, softer, less curated. Someone admits they're exhausted. Someone else confesses they should have left an hour ago but didn't want to seem rude. Laughter follows, low and genuine. No one interrupts. A plate of something simple appears. Cheese, bread, maybe a slice of pie liberated from its display. People eat without ceremony, standing, leaning, taking bites that are slightly too big. This food tastes better than dinner ever did, probably because it's honest. The kitchen clock ticks loudly, reminding you that time still exists, even if everyone else has forgotten. Outside, the night is quiet. Inside, the party has become something smaller and kinder. You take a deep breath, feeling grounded for the first time all evening. The kitchen holds you gently, a brief pause before the night moves on, or finally lets go. Eventually, without ceremony or announcement, people begin to leave. Not all at once, not dramatically, just one by one, like thoughts drifting away as you fall asleep. You notice it only because the room feels slightly larger, the air a little calmer. Goodbyes here are soft and efficient. No long speeches, no promises to call. Just gentle hugs, warm smiles, and the shared understanding that everyone is very tired and pretending otherwise would be unnecessary. Coats are retrieved. Shoes are slipped back on with mild reluctance. You stand near the doorway, offering quiet farewells. Thank you for coming. So lovely to see you. We must do this again sometime, which everyone knows means possibly never, and that's okay. There's comfort in the ambiguity. Outside, engines start. Gravel crunches again. Headlights sweep briefly across the walls, then disappear into the dark. Each departure takes a little energy with it, leaving behind a deeper calm. Inside, chairs sit empty. Glasses are half full. The music continues, but softer now, like it's aware it's no longer needed. The house exhales. You feel a gentle pull toward rest. Not sleep yet, but something close. The night has done what it needed to do. It unfolded, lingered, and now it's folding itself away. The party hasn't ended. It's simply thinning into memory. Once the last car disappears into the darkness, the house changes. Not dramatically, just subtly enough that you feel it. The rooms seem larger now, stretching out after holding their breath all evening. The echoes of laughter and music linger faintly, like warmth in a chair after someone stands up. You walk slowly through the mansion, your footsteps soft against the floors. Glasses sit where they were left, lipsticked rims marking the night's passing. Ashtrays are full, candles burned low and uneven. The house smells like smoke, perfume, and something sweeter, memory maybe. Lights are dimmed one by one, each click sounding louder than it should. In the quiet, the house begins to settle. Pipes hum, wood creaks. Somewhere a clock ticks, steadily, unimpressed by the entire evening. You pause in the living room, looking at the empty couches where confessions were shared and then gently forgotten. The party feels distant now, already turning into something hazy and incomplete. The house doesn't judge, it just remembers, and then slowly it lets go. Morning, or something very close to morning, arrives quietly, accompanied by the soft shuffle of shoes and the muted clatter of cleaning carts. You didn't hear them come in. Somehow this is part of the magic of mansions. The world outside keeps moving, but inside it can appear that nothing ever changes. The cleaning crew moves methodically, efficiently, almost invisibly. Glasses are gathered, ashtrays emptied, tables wiped down with precision that borders on meditation. Every surface is touched and then left spotless, as if erasing the night entirely. You watch, partly amazed, partly jealous. The crew works in silence, communicating only with small gestures. You notice how every movement is deliberate, choreographed to disturb as little as possible. No one trips, no one spills, no one sighs too loudly. It's a performance in quiet, a ritual of order restoring itself after the gentle chaos of indulgence. The smell of cleaning products mixes with the lingering smoke and perfume, creating a strangely comforting scent. It's the aroma of calm after exuberance, of restoration after spectacle. You realize that this too is part of the mansion's rhythm: excitement, indulgence, and then a gentle, invisible reset. You lean back and exhale. The house is quiet again. Everything is clean. The memory of the party hangs lightly in the air, like a soft whisper, while the day slowly begins anew. Morning light filters lazily through tall windows, brushing the polished floors and long shadows of the previous night's revelry. You wander into the dining room, still carrying the soft haze of sleep and late-night indulgence. Breakfast is waiting, but not in the usual sense. The remnants of yesterday's party have claimed the table, as if lingering to remind you that glamour doesn't clean itself. Plates sit half full, crumbs scattered with casual abandon. Glasses sparkle with condensation from last night's untouched water or champagne, reflecting sunlight in lazy patterns. Someone left a piece of fruit, slightly bruised, looking both heroic and slightly apologetic for surviving the night. You pour yourself something to drink, coffee, tea, or simply the awareness that you are awake, and settle into a chair. Conversation is minimal. Maybe someone murmurs about the evening. Someone else hums softly, acknowledging the crumbs of history before them. The air smells faintly of sugar, citrus, and gentle chaos, oddly comforting. You take a bite of something that might be a croissant or a leftover canapé. It tastes better than it has any right to. You watch the servants moving quietly around the room, clearing, arranging, gently orchestrating the aftermath of indulgence. They don't rush, don't speak loudly. They are the silent guardians of order, returning the world to a sense of calm while everyone else drinks coffee slowly, recovering. The mansion itself seems to exhale with you. The quiet is thicker now, more tangible, the energy of the night settling into memory and sunlight. Even the shadows seem softer, less precise, more like a suggestion than a line. You take another bite, sip your drink, and realize that breakfast here is not just food. It's reflection, a slow acknowledgement of indulgence, chaos, and gentle absurdity. The night's grandeur lingers, softened by sunlight and pastries. By the time you rise, crumbs and cups have begun to disappear, the house moving quietly back toward order. You carry the memory of laughter, music, and conversation gently folded into the calm of morning, as if the mansion itself has whispered, "Rest now. The world continues, but for now it's peaceful." You rise from breakfast, feeling both lighter and slower, carrying the gentle weight of yesterday's glamour. The mansion stretches before you, long corridors bathed in soft sunlight, echoing faintly with memories of laughter, heels, and music. The halls are empty now, save for the occasional quiet shuffle of a servant or the distant hum of a window left slightly ajar. You wander slowly, fingertips brushing along polished banisters, noting how shadows bend and shift over carpets that once held the weight of dancing feet. Each room you pass feels like a stage set moments after the performance ended, chairs still slightly askew, drapes flickering with gentle motion from a passing breeze, the faint scent of perfume lingering in the air, like a soft memory. The quiet is profound, yet not oppressive. It wraps around you, a gentle presence reminding you of stillness after spectacle. You notice small details. A teacup left abandoned on a side table, a stray ribbon from last night's festivities, the way sunlight slants across a painting so that it seems almost alive. Walking these empty halls, you feel the mansion breathing slowly, settling into itself. The energy of the party has dissipated, leaving only traces of joy, gossip, and human absurdity. You pause by a window, looking out at the gardens now quiet, dew-sparkled and perfectly ordered, as if nothing extraordinary ever happened. Each step feels deliberate, mindful, a slow meditation on presence and absence. The echo of your shoes is comforting, marking the rhythm of calm after indulgence. You realize the halls are both enormous and intimate, vast spaces filled with private memories, yet welcoming enough to make you feel quietly at home. As you move through room after room, you sense the mansion's personality, patient, unhurried, and subtly amused by all the comings and goings it has witnessed. You exhale, feeling the weight of night lift further, replaced by soft reflection and gentle serenity. By the time you reach the end of the corridor, you understand something small but important. The mansion has survived the chaos, the glamour, the absurdity, and so have you. The halls are empty, the night is past, and the world has slowed to a rhythm almost perfect for rest. You find yourself in the bedroom at last, soft light filtering through curtains that have absorbed decades of sun and shadow. The air feels warmer here, quieter, almost tactile, as if the house itself is offering a final embrace. You settle onto the bed, the sheets cool against your skin, the pillow soft and inviting, a gentle promise of rest. The day's events drift behind you, like clouds pulled slowly across a pale sky. The grandeur of dinner, the haze of cigarettes, the laughter and whispers, they all dissolve into something lighter, softer, something that feels like memory being folded neatly into a drawer. You close your eyes briefly, savouring the calm that comes after indulgence. Somewhere in the distance, the mansion exhales. Floorboards creak gently, the hum of distant pipes settles into a rhythm, and even the walls seem to sigh. You feel a strange companionship in this quiet, a gentle understanding that every space has a story, every night a rhythm, and every human presence a trace left behind. You tuck yourself in further, drawing the covers lightly around you. The day's absurdity, the perfectly orchestrated cocktails, the half-understood conversations, the delicate dance of social grace, melts away. What remains is warmth, comfort, and a soft unspoken humour that carries you effortlessly towards sleep. You imagine the mansion resting too, standing quietly, windows dark, furniture settling, echoes fading. Outside the world continues, but here, inside, everything has slowed to a pace meant for dreaming. You exhale, letting your muscles relax, your mind unspool, and your thoughts drift freely, untethered by responsibility or expectation. For a final moment, you reflect on the gentle absurdity of it all. Glamour, etiquette, laughter, smoke, and confessions. They were all part of one perfect, improbable tapestry. You smile softly, feeling a quiet gratitude for comfort, calm, and the human capacity to navigate chaos with elegance, however absurd it may seem. And as your eyelids grow heavier, the mansion standing silently around you, you allow yourself to drift fully into sleep, carried by warmth, calm, and the gentle rhythm of a day well lived, well witnessed, and softly remembered.